Welcome to another edition of Recruiters with No Limits Live. And one thing I got to say is it's always talk about the hot topics in the staffing industry. And we don't script it. It's
Never.
all live, unscripted all the time. I'm here with my sidekick, John Raffini. What's up, buddy?
How are you, buddy?
Good. And we got a special guest today. I mean, we talked backstage. This guy is everywhere. I mean, if you look, he's on Forbes, he's in Wall Street Journal, he's on CBS, ABC, Fox, you just name it, he's there. Jason Greer, what's up, buddy?
Hey, thanks for having me. This is awesome. I want to tell you something. Richard, you are the best pitch man I've ever been a part associated with. I mean, this guy's had me pumped up to be on this podcast for the past 2 weeks, and we weren't even on the podcast yet. I was like, let's go.
The energy never stops with Richard.
24/7.
I love it.
Jason of Greer Consulting. I'll tell you what, Jason, we're just going to deep dive in it like you always say about your deep dive assessments and stuff. Tell us a little about yourself, where you're at right now, and how you got here, man.
Yeah, great question. So I'm currently in New Orleans, and I've legit been on 3 different time zones within the past 2 weeks. So if I'm a little bonkers, please forgive me, right?
You don't travel much, do you?
Oh, man, 160 days out of the year. Even during COVID, it was 120 days. So it's been one of those things that I tell people is everybody wants to be successful because that's the thing. You see the mantras, just do it, all this stuff. But what those mantras don't encompass is all the work that goes into doing that every single day. It's, and I founded Greer Consulting, my company, GCI, in 2005 with roughly $100 in the bank. I'm a former federal agent with the National Labor Relations Board and had this idea of becoming a consultant, hoping that in some form or fashion I would get maybe 2 or 3 cases a year, and that would cover mortgage, card note, those kinds of things. And going from $100 in my bank account to just found out 2 months ago that we're now in the top 5% of employee and labor relations consultants in the country. It's been, oh man, thank you. It's just been
a lot of
such
hard work,
incredible,
I'm sure.
A lot of hard work, a lot of luck, a lot of sleepless nights, and which I know that you all can completely empathize with. But also,
see, I think your hard work breeds luck.
It does because the hard
grit.
The hard work breeds, right? And you have to have the courage to actually seize the opportunity. Because how many people do we know that have worked hard, then the opportunity's right in front of them, and then they get stage fright and their fears take over. And I'm not saying that, like you all, I'm not saying that I haven't dealt with those fears. I constantly deal with those fears. The difference is the fear of sitting back saying what if, as opposed to actually experiencing what if, right? By walking through those doors and seeing what life is about. And I'm so thankful, so grateful for where I am. It's been awesome.
That's awesome.
Awesome, man. I love that you appreciate that. You know what? You know where you came from and you know where you're at right now. And that's being humble. But dude, you are a celebrity, man, in my eyes, man. You're rocking it out, buddy. And you're making an impact for everybody, as John will always say. So, hey, we're just going to deep dive into this. Like I said, again, you ready for this? I got to bring this slogan out, man. And we got to talk about this right off the bat.
Sure.
People will work for money, but they will die for respect and recognition.
Yes, sir.
What's that all about, my man?
So my father gave that to me when I was 15 years old and had absolutely no idea what in the bluest hell that even meant, right? My father, he was a grade school principal, and my mother's a nurse. And the one thing that I remember so much my parents, still alive, blessedly, was how hard they worked, but how hard they worked with the intention of being good to other people. So when I was 17, my family, we were the prospects by the Ku Klux Klan, also known as the KKK. And I remember, there's nothing like trying to figure out who you're taking to homecoming your senior year while also staring at a burning cross, realizing that your name was etched in that cross, right?
Wow.
I can't even begin to comprehend what that's like.
No.
Well, it was I think that's the other side of racism that people don't talk about is the humiliation that you have to live with, right? But I was 18, so that was 18 years old. I'm at Valparaiso University. I'm home for spring break. And I'm walking to the gym because I'm an avid weightlifter. And I'm listening to Sade, right? Because who doesn't like Sade? And listen to Smooth Operator. And I remember there was these four gentlemen who happened to be white who were driving past me. There's, call me the N-word, call me all these things. I'm just like, whatever. Tell me to go back to Africa, literally wanted to say, tell me what part of Africa I'm from and I'll go. Right? Say, help me help you. But
and where is this and what year are we talking about?
Yeah, so this is in Dubuque, Iowa. So this is 1992 when this happened.
That just blows my mind.
Yeah, it was crazy. So the LA Times just did a big story on my family at the beginning of last year. And just all this stuff, because we're the first family to come to Dubuque, Iowa under the constructive integration plan, whereby they were going to bring over 100 Black families into Dubuque over the course of 10 years. The problem with that was they never told us. So they never told us that we were the first family to come under this plan.
Oh my gosh, surprise.
So just imagine, you're talking about forced integration.
Wow.
In a community that's 99.9% white, who had never been given a choice or even any feedback on how this is going to look, right? So the backlash was immediate. So here I am, I'm home for spring break, my freshman year, and these 4 gentlemen pull over. They're yelling stuff at me. And I'm sure they were saying some really nasty stuff, but I still have my Walkman in. That's how dated it is. I have my Walkman in my tape in, right? So all I hear is Sade, and I just see these miles moving a mile a minute. And this guy has this bottle that had this yellow liquid in it. And I'm assuming it's Gatorade. And he throws it at me.
Oh, no.
Hits me dead in my chest. And of course, the liquid goes spraying everywhere. And I only realized that it was urine because it got in my mouth.
Oh, my God.
And I looked down at my shirt. It's just covered yellow. It's just stained. And I would like to tell you that in this version of the story that I said, no, you will not throw urine at me. And I beat those 4 guys up. But the reality is I ran because I was scared. And I think the humbling side of that wasn't just the urine in my mouth. The humbling side of that was looking at my mother as she's helping me to get my clothes on. I'm trembling in fear, anger, and I'm crying. I'm brushing my teeth 6 or 7 times, just trying to get that taste out of my mouth. Oh. And also, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. Honestly, it took me about 3 weeks before I could really look at myself in the mirror because of how humiliated I was.
We don't realize this is amazing that you're comfortable and vulnerable enough to share this. So thank you, first of all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no problem.
But we never. This is pretty extreme. But we never totally realize how much what we do to others, how much of a lasting impact that can leave on them. Yes. People just might think it's in the moment and, it's no big deal. But you got to consider that stuff leaves a scar.
Yes. Yeah, to your point, it leaves a scar. But it also, I think in that moment, you can allow it to define you one of 2 ways. Either it motivates you, or it defeats you. And, the reason why I'm sort of going down this path is because going back to my father's attitude, even in the course of going through all of this negativity, my father still showed up every single day with love, right? And I'm not saying that it wasn't difficult for him. I'm not saying that he didn't have moments where he's realizing the hell that he moved his family into. But my father was a grade school principal, and I'm going to tell you that he just poured his, whatever it was, he just poured back into his school. He poured back into me with his attitude of, not everyone in this world is going to like you, but you have the ultimate responsibility of still being successful in life despite the obstacles that are in front of you. That's why I can't get with this whole mentality of the world is bad, therefore I'm going to sit this one out. No, the world has bad pockets. It has bad elements, but you still have a responsibility to be the best version of yourself, because otherwise you're just a waste of breath, right? So
totally agree.
That's why I can't stop. I mean, legit, my wife asked me at one point, okay, when is enough enough? and I told her, it's enough when I can no longer breathe. And I'm not talking to dying of a massive heart attack, from stress. I'm not talking in that stuff. I'm saying when God decides at age 99 that he's going to take me out, right? Understand, I'm going to high five Jesus and say, thank you. It's been a great life. That's just my attitude.
Well, it sounds like you had some incredible role models growing up, and
right.
That can make all the difference in the world too. Because if you don't have that to emulate and to look up to, that can dictate one way or the other where a person goes. So that's blessed to have that, so to speak.
Oh man,
absolutely. My parents, my coaches, just for the negative things that I've experienced in life, I'm going to tell you that I've had so many positives. I've had so many people just, I'm still in contact with my math tutor from high school. I was a terrible math student, terrible. And every day she would look at me and she goes, "But you're going to be a superstar. You just got to believe it." So you have these people, and these people are just pouring life into me. So to your earlier point, John, that we don't consider the impact of our actions, right? That is a negative side to that, but there's also a positive side to that, because every positive word that you instill in somebody else, man, look back 20 years later and they might not remember your name, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
exactly.
That's awesome.
So true, Jason. I just love what you said there. I'm sure John does too. It makes goosebumps all over me, man. I mean, because you're showing love. Like me and John, we love everybody around us, and you're the same way, man. And I appreciate that.
Love it.
Real quick, Jason, when you go to companies, you go in there, is it more like a workforce rescue? I mean, they're fighting and arguing and bickering, and you're there to put this all together?
Yeah, everything that you just described. So there's two sides of my business. There's one side, there's the employee relations aspect, in which we come in and we conduct what we call a deep dive assessment, where anything and everything that you want to know about your organization, we're going to tell you and then some. And it's all from the grassroots perspective. So if you have an organization of 2,000 people, a lot of employee relations companies, they'll do focus groups. Our focus group is all 2,000 employees. And we're going to let you know in granular detail everything that people are saying.
So you really are deep diving.
Oh man, we're bringing.
He's like the shark, man. He's in.
That's right.
We go in because my background is in counseling, so that's my perspective when I go into this. It's how do I put people at ease in such a way that they know that what we're doing here, this is not a witch hunting expedition. We're not looking at getting people fired. We're not looking at people getting demoted. What we're asking the question of is, what are you thinking when you're driving to work? What are you thinking when you're at work? What are you thinking about when you're driving home? So anything and everything that's keeping a CEO, VP of multiple departments up at night, we're going to let you know the answers to those questions, those burning questions that you have. The other side of what we do is, if you find a company that is being organized by a labor union, and we are registered persuaders on the Department of Labor. I'm a former board agent with the National Labor Relations Board, where I got my street cred in terms of my understanding of labor law. We are one of the top consultants in terms of our ability to keep companies union free. So we're doing it all, in addition to the fact that we do diversity management.
Now, I know this isn't just you alone. How large is your company? How many people you have working with you?
Yeah, great question. 25 consultants work with me directly.
That's awesome.
They are spread out throughout the nation, and brother, I'm having so much fun. Oh my God.
You can tell you're passionate about it, and
yes, sir.
And you love it. And that, if it's like most of us, if you find something you're passionate about, you don't look at it as work. You just look at it as it's your passion and you enjoy it so much. So
exactly.
So that's kudos for you. A lot of people spend their whole life never find that. So you clearly knew where you wanted to be and where you wanted to channel your energies.
Yes, sir. If the worst thing that happens is I can't remember what time zone I'm in, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it.
As long as you got a coffee and a protein bar, you're good to go, man. Right?
That's what I'm saying. As long as I have a cell phone to keep track of where I am, I'm good.
That's right. They'll adjust automatically. Thank God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, Jason, I got a quick question here. Yeah. So go into a company. Give me the day-to-day, like from morning to night, like you go in the beginning. How's your assessment? I'm sure there's times you rack your brain at the hotel and say, how did I get through these people? What's your day-to-day like?
Yeah, great question. So basically our day-to-day is, so we'll get to the organization, meet with management, and our process too is, let's be honest, if I'm a manager and I'm being told that a consultant is coming in to meet with my staff, my first thought is, okay, what is going to be the impact to me, right?
Exactly.
Especially if I'm a manager who knows that I'm having difficulties with my staff.
Yeah, sure.
And so what we do, we start off directly with management because I want them to feel at ease with the process, but I also need to get their perspective because you have employees who will make you believe that their managers are the worst thing since Satan. But if you don't have anything to, I don't know, to balance that out, that perspective, because it's so easy to lump ill on the managers, but sometimes you just have problematic employees that you've given everything to and they still have issues. So we'll meet with management, we'll, sort of put their minds at ease in terms of this process, but also get their feedback. Then we'll go directly into the employee meetings. So you're talking about anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour, where it's myself or my consultants that set up in various rooms, and we're in front of a flip chart. And we are legit diving into the issues, and the employees actually see this represented up on the flip chart, so they know we're listening to them. And what we're doing through this process too is it's a conversation. So I have this weird thing that I'm not as comfortable speaking to somebody one-on-one, but if you give me a group of 20, if you give me a group of 500, I come alive, right? It's the weird reverse thing. So what we're doing over the course of 12 to 14 hours a day is it's a series of conversations, but we are looking for those granular details. And we're looking for, okay, if Department A is feeling this way, Department B is feeling this way, and this is the outcome for the company, what can we do to reverse some of these trends of Department A so that it positively impacts Department B? So the ultimate outcome is that the company in itself benefits from it.
And I imagine, to your point earlier, you get both perspectives, because as we always like to say, there's three sides to every story, and
Yes.
the truth is somewhere in the middle. So
Absolutely.
How often, people, when consultants come in, I guess the perception seems to be, oh, they're going to kick management's butt and get them in gear and make them manage us better. When in reality, sometimes it's the infrastructure, the employees that are the cancer, if you will. How often do you go in where you say, hey, there's some tweaks that need to be made, but you got some problem children in here you got to deal with? How often does that happen when it's really not a whole lot that management can do differently, but that there's a little bit of an uprising within the ranks?
Quite often, actually. Quite often. It's, you'll find that, when people talk about organizing a union, right, which is sort of the, in case of emergency, break glass solution for a lot of employees, right? You'll find that you will have a group of employees that no matter what you've done for them, they're just going to be angry, right? They just want to see the world burn. But then you'll have the other side where no matter what the company does to them, no matter how bad it is, they still show up because they are the folks who are just like, you know what, I just want to work, give me my paycheck and let me go on. Then you have the people in the middle. And it's the people in the middle that I always worry about, because they're sort of, it's almost like a water in a tube, right? You move it this way, the water's going to go this way. You move it this way, the water's going to go that way. So I always think in terms of, if I were sitting in the middle of these two extremes, what would I want in order to move me from this extreme, from the middle to the extreme of I'm pro company, right? A lot of that has to do with the fact that some of it is you need to cover, recognize the need to cover old ground, meaning you got to go back to day one, orientation, when people were just alive, they were excited to have a job, they want to be part of this organization. And then ask the bigger question is, what is it that we lost over the course of that time? Is this something that was going on with the employee? Maybe he or she has personal challenges outside of the organization that's distracting them. Is this a poor alignment in terms of manager-employee fit, right? Or is this a poor alignment in terms of the employee skill set for this particular department? So the perspective that we use is less about removing employees or removing managers, and it's more about, okay, if this is our sandbox to play in, where can we move people so that they are a better fit and they get maximum productivity?
I absolutely love that, because a lot of times people think, oh, we hired the wrong person, when in reality, you might have hired the right person for the company. You just have them in the wrong role.
Exactly. And we see that happen so often. I think that, I always tell employees, be as honest as you possibly can in your application, your resume, right? Because you might try to augment your skill set in order to get the job, but the problem is you get the job and then people expect you to do that thing that you put in your resume.
Sure.
Right? And if you're not capable of doing that, then you're going to be back on the job market 3 months later looking for another job.
Exactly.
Right? But also don't be afraid, provided you work in an organization that's conducive to your voice. Don't be afraid to take a step up and say, I would like to become a supervisor. I'd like to become a lead. I'd like to become a manager. I'd like to grow within the organization. Because if you don't speak up, again, provided it's safe for you to speak up. Please understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to know what they have.
But shouldn't it? I know I'm living in a dream world here, but Jason, shouldn't it always be safe for you to speak up? I mean, shouldn't you want your employees to voice what they want? And you won't always be able to deliver it for them, but if you have people that are just kind of drones, what kind of company are you building? Shouldn't you always want that kind of culture?
You should, but does it really
you should. Exactly. You should.
Scared.
I think the scary thing for an employer is when you've created a cult of personality, but you don't understand that you're actually the cult leader, right?
Ooh,
that's a great song, by the way.
Deep.
It's a great song. It's a great song, right? But you can have employers. Like, I'll give you an example. Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos flies to space. Jeff Bezos, Richard Brosnan, is that his name? The guy
Branson.
from Virgin. Branson, thank you.
Branson, yep.
Are living the life of billionaires. It's, hey, what are you doing today? I think I'm gonna go to space. Right?
Because I can.
Because I can, but just make sure that I'm back by 3 p.m. for my tea time. Right? Yeah. I mean, that's the life. Yeah. That's the life that I think a lot of people would dream of. But be careful how you celebrate that, because when Jeff Bezos made his speech after he landed, and he was like, I'd like to thank Amazon customers and Amazon employees because you pay for this. Dude.
No.
Imagine if you're an Amazon employee, how you felt about that.
Yeah, really.
And you work 12 hours just now, and you're angry. And
they've had some issues over the past year with how they're treating their employees, especially at the warehouse level.
They had a big union movement in Bresner, Alabama, I believe, that they won. But 3 years ago, Amazon wouldn't have been vulnerable enough in their fulfillment centers, the big fulfillment centers, for that to even happen. So it's one of those things that what I share with my clients is be mindful that everyone is watching you. And, Remember the Titans is one of my favorite movies.
Love that movie.
Love that movie. And I'm going to paraphrase here. But, one of the gems that was dropped in that movie is, and I'm paraphrasing because this isn't the exact quote, attitude follows leadership. And how you show up as a leader on your best day and on your worst day, because leaders are humans as well. Be mindful that people are watching you. If you're a lead, the people that you lead are watching you. If you're a supervisor, the people who you supervise are watching you. But if you're a CEO, everybody's watching you.
That's a good point.
Somebody's watching you. Rockwell, great song again, right? You got me on these 80s.
I love it. Hey, man, you're killing it. You're killing it.
Richard, you just took me back decades. Wow.
This will be your playlist next week, Jason. When you're flying, you'll be putting Rockwell on.
Oh, without a doubt. You see, I want to sing, but I don't have a voice. I don't want your listeners to leave. So,
well, to your point, and I fully embrace everything you're speaking with us about today. CEOs and leaders, senior executives in companies. I draw the analogy to parents in the home.
Yes.
The kids are going to follow the parents' lead. Your employees are going to follow your leader's lead. And I just did an instructional session with a group of folks in our company yesterday, and emphasizing them, internally, the way that we treat each other will bleed into the way that we treat the customers externally.
Yes, sir.
If we respect each other and we have each other's back, you're going to deliver amazing customer service. But if you are at each other's throats internally, whether you realize it or not, that's going to permeate into the outside world, and it's just going to be a cascading effect.
I'm going to tell you something. I completely agree with you. My matriarch in my business, and I call her my matriarch because she was my first client, Brenda Bacon, CEO of Brandywine Senior Living Home, a regional nursing facility, right? Assisted living independent. I call her my matriarch because she is the person who really motivated me to stop working for other people, become my own boss. I mean, literally, that's what she said. Stop working for other people, become your own boss, because I believe that you have the talent to do it. She has created such a culture within Brandywine that you have certified nursing assistants, CNAs for short, who, when they get on the bus, when they're walking through the mall, they will purposely put on their Brandywine gear.
Wow.
Because they have so much pride in working for Brandywine. And they will actually have people asking them, how do I get into Brandywine? Because if you're this proud to work for them, I want to be a part of that. And
wow.
You're talking about a CEO. I call her mini Oprah, right? Because because she's done incredibly well, but Oprah's kind of at another level for most people, right? But she has created this culture of, I want to say that Brenda probably has about maybe 40 facilities spread throughout the nation. And you cannot go a single resident, you cannot go a single employee without them saying, I know Brenda Bacon. But that's because she embodies this attitude of, I might be the CEO, but I work for you.
Love that.
And
Servant leadership.
It's incredible. So she will always be my hero.
Wow.
Exactly. I love what you just said there, because management, and I have the same philosophy. My temp workers, which I call contract workers, without them, I don't have a job. I'm not the shark.
Yes.
And I tell them that right off the bat. We work together as a team. And I think that's what sums it up. Jason, I got to ask you about this. And this is going on crazy right now, viral. These restaurants and stuff, people walking out.
Right.
What's going on? Or give me your take on this, because you're an expert in this. What's going on with everything going on with Burger King, Dollar General, and all these stores? People just putting signs up and walking out. How can they prevent this?
The first thing I'll say to you is, and it gets back to what we were talking about during the pre-show, selling your culture. Because if your culture is that you're merely advertising a help wanted sign because you just need to fill in another, minimum wage job, right? You're always going to lose out, because you're hiring somebody at minimum wage, but they're dealing with maximum problems. And those maximum problems are those customers who are showing up who they don't care that we're still dealing in a pandemic, right? They don't care that you're still dealing with a labor shortfall. That customer shows up in that restaurant, that customer wants to be seated immediately. They don't feel like waiting in line for an hour, which is what we're seeing. They don't feel like, once they get seated, waiting for another hour, waiting for the meal to come out, because we are short of cooks in the back. So then they take all of their full force and full fury out on the wait staff. So what I'm sharing with clients who, are restaurant industry clients is, right now, I know you are managers. I know that you have a business to manage, but you also need to be security guards for your staff, because you need to show I care about you. I care about you to a point where, if you have an unruly customer and I know you got to make money, well, that customer has to leave. Because what people are basically saying when they're walking out, they're not just walking out because they're not getting paid enough. They're walking out because they don't feel safe with you. They don't feel like, when push comes to shove, you're going to be there in support of them. They feel like you're always going to err on the side of the customer, no matter how difficult the customer was.
It's a great distinction.
I love that. Hands-on leadership. You got to be hands-on with them.
Boy, and how would that feel if you're an employee and you feel like your boss doesn't have your back, and that they're defending? It's like the old story, like, well, you don't believe me, you're going to believe them over me, that type of thing. And who wants to work in that environment? And if that's the case, then it's not a question of if, but when that person leaves.
And I think we all experienced this before. When I worked in restaurants back in high school, the customer's always right?
Yes.
And the boss
when they're not.
your back.
Exactly.
I have a modified version of that, Richard, that I teach. I teach our folks that, the customer is not always right, but the customer is always the customer.
I like that.
And there's a difference. So even when they're not right, you can treat them in a way that you still got to show them the respect that you might not always get, but that you deserve. So the customers, I grew up with that too. The customer's always right. Not really. It's not always right, but they are always the customer. So you've got to walk a fine line there.
And the way you approach it.
And I'm fortunate that I have a number of clients who believe in doing business the right way.
Good.
And doing the business the right way is not just in terms of providing excellent customer service. It's also recognizing that we have to provide excellent internal customer service. So those, in a hotel, those general managers who will legitimately stand up for their staff members, and they will kick, problematic guests out. For those folks in the manufacturing setting who will fight tooth and nail to get a pay rate adjustment for their employees, because they know that their employees were furloughed for a year. They're still trying to catch up in terms of their bills. Because look, it's become the popular thing to say, well, people don't want to work because they're getting unemployment benefits. That's true in some cases, but that's not true in every case.
You're totally right. I'm so glad you said that, because the media's blown it up. People want to work.
People want to work.
They just want a right culture is what they want.
Well, and how about this? Being treated with respect should not be the right of the upper class, right?
Everybody deserves that.
Everybody deserves that because that's called being a human.
Correct.
And you're a human long before you were ever an employee, right? So,
and unfortunately, I think we've got some companies now that coming out of the pandemic, they're saying, oh, well, people, you need this job, so I don't have to pay you as much as I would have had to pay you a year ago. And that's wrong too. So they're undervaluing. And some people are like, well, I need to work and I'll, take the money, but that's not going to lead to any long-term success or loyalty. And again, that gets back to what type of culture and what type of reputation and brand are you putting on the street for your company? Pay people what they're worth.
Right.
The fact that they haven't worked in the past year, 8 months, whatever it is, it's not necessarily their own doing. I mean, we kind of just went through something unprecedented. So, let's all help each other get back to it.
And also consider the single mother who is being offered 3 or 4 jobs, which is awesome, but 3 or 4 jobs making minimum wage, while she still has kids at home who are not back in school. She's a sole breadwinner. So in many cases, it becomes a situation of I could work these 4 jobs, but what is that doing to my family? And also, if I work these 4 jobs, and let's say in the case of benefits, she's receiving unemployment benefits. If those 4 jobs barely equate to what I would make in benefits, she's not a dummy. She's going to go with unemployment.
Exactly right. I'm glad you said that, Jason.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't blame anybody. If you can make more money at one point because you have to survive for your family and maybe have health care and whatever, go for it.
Exactly.
I mean, there's going to be a time you're going to be off that. We know it's all going to come to an end.
Right.
But you know what? Don't blame people because they just don't want to work. I don't like that. And I think something that you really hit on is we don't know what other people are feeling. So every time you're on the phone as a recruiter, John knows this. I'm like Disney World because I don't know if they had a bad night. They were out, got kicked out of their house. With me, I'm going to show love and respect, and I'm going to try to get you a job. And I think you have to do that every second you're on the phone. It's like showtime.
Exactly.
Stephen Covey used to say, seek first to understand. And I try to live that every day because you don't know what's going on in people's lives.
Right. And you don't know what they're dealing with. Look, I don't know that from, granted, we just came out of a terrible global pandemic that, to your point, John and Richard, that was unprecedented. There was no planning for it. There's not a single company that had a COVID line item in their forecasted budget. Right?
If they did, I'd be really impressed.
Like they need to get out of business and become.
I should have trademarked that name. I would have been a millionaire.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. I think it is that everybody's going through something, and so, and I know it's not popular to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I am such a big believer in America. I love what this country has done for us. I don't necessarily love some of the things that have been done to me as a result of being African American in this country. But I will say that I'm a big fan of this country because it has allowed me to make so many of my dreams come true. But in keeping with the fact that I'm a big fan, that also means that I'm always going to push the American dream and the American idea that we can do better. We have the resources to do better. We have the intelligence to do better. Now we have to have the desire to do better. And that's not just the desire to send, a couple more billionaires into space. That's the desire to make sure that our kids are fed. That's the desire to make sure that our families are taken care of. Because look, this is a capitalistic society. It's based on our ability to produce. But if we're not creating the avenues for people to produce at their maximum capabilities, where's America going to be in the next 50 years?
Amen.
Man, you summed that up. And it's almost like, Jason, I coach football on the side. It's the same thing in what you're doing too, man. You build everybody up, right? If they fumble the ball, it's okay. You break them down, but you hug them and say, hey, kid, we'll get it next time, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what it's like in the real world too.
People have to get over themselves, and instead of having a selfish nature where, oh, I want to make it to the top or I want to get ahead of you, they need to realize, and we got to look out for each other. We got to have each other's back, because if we can lift everybody up, then everybody wins, and there's room enough for everybody at the top.
Exactly. Completely agree with you.
Richard, Aaron just had a great comment. Aaron Mensinger said, showing empathy and understanding goes a long way to creating positive relationships between leaders and those they lead. Very true. Empathy is huge.
if this is Aaron Menziger, my friend, I'm going to say this about him. I met him, I want to say back in 2007, 2008, while I was working for a client. And he was working, he was an HR manager. And I don't know that I've met anybody who embodies everything that he says the way he does.
Wow.
Right?
That's awesome.
I mean, this guy is basically like, look, I know my skill set, I know what I bring to the table, but I want to help you at every stage of, every level of game. It's an incredible guy.
That's quite testimony.
That is.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Aaron Menziger, so there you go.
Tell you what, wow, we have had so much good information today. One last thing I want to elaborate on real quick is you and John have something in common. You both have books out. I'm not an author yet, man. I feel left out here. I may be in the works writing a book soon, but tell us a little bit real quick about the 2 books you got out there and what made you write them.
Yeah, great. So, John, what's the name of your book?
It's a book called Money Makers, and it's about fundamental habits in the world of sales and recruiting to help you become more successful.
If you wouldn't mind, if you would send me a link, because I would love to get it.
Sure.
I'd love to learn more. So thank you.
Hey, John, see, I get commission off that too, right, John?
That was subliminal selling that he did. He put it in my head. Now I have
He did.
Right. So my first book is called People Matter Most, and I co-authored that with Mason Dukacek and Ken Lynch. And the idea of that book was really along the lines of recruitment, but also once you recruit people into the organization, taking care of them, right? And asking the bigger question of, what can we do to make people feel like they actually matter? Hence the title, People Matter Most. Amazon bestseller, fun book to write because I really like working with those 2 gentlemen. The second book, Bias, Racism, and the Brain, which is a more personal book for me. Like so many folks, when the George Floyd moment happened, we were asking the bigger question of what can we do? Because I was being inundated with questions from friends, people I grew up with, people I hadn't spoken to in 30 plus years, who in some shape or form kind of discovered that racism might be a thing, right? But they had no idea that it was such a thing until they saw that moment where Derek Chauvin had his knee on George Floyd's neck and killed him in front of the world. So I co-authored with my best friend in the world, Phil Dixon, because we wanted to create a framework in which, look, we've been talking about racism for centuries. Martin Luther King died, still talking about racism and how we could be better. And we talk about the I Have a Dream speech. And I think that from a theoretical standpoint, we all understand that we should get along. But there's something that's standing in the way. And Phil is just an incredible resource because he is the foremost authority on the neuroscience of leadership. And what we discovered through working in this book is that we don't necessarily have a race problem in the world. We have a brain problem because our society has changed. Consider this. We're likely in 3 different locations having this conversation because that's the beauty of technology. I'm about to get on a flight tonight and I'm going to be 30,000, 40,000 feet up in the air and I'm not scared, right? Because that's technology. But the one thing that has not evolved is our brain, because our brains are still trapped in the days of our ancestors. And our brains produce 1 and 2 states when we're around our in-group. When I'm in the midst of my in-group, that's people who look like me, talk like me, think like me. Therefore, they're me. Take a look at your suburb, because your suburb might be full of people who look exactly like you. And you don't really think anything about it. It's just, that's the nature of the beast. When you're in the presence of your in-group, you have the dopamine effect. You feel good. You feel like, life is good. I feel comfort in being in the midst of these folks. Well, that's an evolutionary standpoint from our brain, because our brains have said that we want to keep you safe. But when I get in the company of people who don't look like me, talk like me, think like me, therefore they're not me, that's called my out-group. And what we have in our society is a war between the in-group and the out-group theory, right? What we did with this book, Bias, Racism, and the Brain, is we ask a bigger question. Okay, here are my stories, and I lay it to bear. I talk about the cross-burning incident. I talk about the urine incident. I talk about, things that I experienced growing up, because the brain loves stories. And in the process of reading my story, now you begin to open your mind to, okay, how would I feel if I were in this situation? Now that we have you at least sympathizing with some of the things that I've been through, Now we can begin to have this conversation about how can we make the advancement in terms of racism, in terms of eradicating racism, or any other ism that you want to talk about. So bias, braces in the brain is really, it's our gift to people who have an open mind toward learning something new, and at least advancing that conversation of what can I do to make a change in society. And I'm not saying you have to become the latest, civil rights activist in your workplace or in your church or in your neighborhood. I'm just asking you to ask the bigger question of what can I do to make myself better? Because if I change, maybe that'll have an impact on the rest of the world, or at least my immediate circle.
If everybody had that attitude, one person at a time,
yes,
we would have a lot more positivity in the world. Jason, I have a question for you, and I don't know that we can answer the question, but
sure.
How do we get, there's so much. I was just telling Richard beforehand, I stopped watching the news a long time ago,
sure.
Because it's too negative and I'm too positive a person. And I feel that there's so much divisiveness, willing divisiveness. People want to divide other people with negativity as if they want that battle of good and evil to continue. How do we change that when there's so much, whether it's media or social media, et cetera, there's so much evil against us or against that battle that it's almost like it's insurmountable?
Great question. The first thing that pops to mind, and this is probably the least consulting answer I'm ever going to give you because it sounds so simple, right? But I'm just going to throw it out there, is having the courage to take a step towards somebody that doesn't look like you and attempt to engage in a conversation. Because here's what we know about our brain. Our brains are fluid. And the more you put yourself out there, the more experiences you have, both positive and negative, your brain chemistry changes, right? The media is doing what the media is designed to do. The media is just it's a negative beast because that's what attracts people.
That's what sells.
If all the media reported was, Miss Jane picked a bunch of daisies today, no one would tune in, right? Because it's not sensational.
It'd be nice every once in a while to hear about Miss Jane's daisies, though.
Exactly, but when you look at the traffic online of websites that are dedicated exclusively to positive news versus Fox News, I guarantee you Fox News's viewer count dwarfs that of the positive news, right? People love sensation. But what I'll say to you is the more you are willing to step inside the shoes of other people by at least showing up to be there with other people, even if you get rejected, don't we encourage people? Don't we encourage our kids to continue moving past the school bully, moving on past obstacles?
Yep.
If we would just take the cliches that we give our kids and actually put that in our daily life as adults, I think we would come to a point where we realize that we're really not that much different. Because look, I'm an African-American gentleman. You are a white gentleman. But guess what? Guarantee we have in common a mortgage. We have in common loved ones. We have in common wanting this world to be a better place. And sometimes it's just making sure that when I get up in the morning, I'm dog tired, that my socks actually match. We're not that much different, but I think that we put so much weight on our differences that we don't put enough time and energy into what do we have in common. Because when all is said and done, I don't care if you're living in North County, St. Louis, I don't care if you're in the White House in Washington, D.C. The thing that you have in common is that you have a heartbeat, you have a pulse, you have a soul, you have a spirit, you have a mind. Therefore, you have a desire to at least do something in this world.
Amen.
So,
wow.
John, that was powerful. I tell you what, Jason, any final thoughts, John?
I am inspired. I am definitely going to pick up both your books.
Thank you.
This is the beauty of networking. When Richard mentioned that, you were going to join us on the show, of course, I looked you up, started researching your background, was blown away. And I love that about what we do, because I would have never had the pleasure of meeting you or becoming acquainted with you if for not for this connection. So,
awesome.
I appreciate what you bring to the table. I embrace and support your passion and your mission. And I just can't thank you enough for being on and sharing it with us.
Hey, thank you. And let me say this to you, gentlemen. I do a lot of media interviews. This was so much fun. You all have something special. I'm not kidding. You all have something special in what you're doing. And I don't just say that after every interview. Sometimes I get off an interview and I'm like, that was terrible. you all have me so pumped up. So thank you. Continue doing your mission.
Thank you.
Richard bringing that energy, John bringing that energy, all the creativity that you all bring to the table, because you all have something special. So
thank you, man.
Thanks a lot, Jason. Real quick, where can everybody find you at? I know you're everywhere. What's your specialty platform? Twitter, LinkedIn? Where can they find you at?
I'll give it to you. So you can find me on my website, hiregci.com. The name implies in itself, hire us. We'll do work for you. And on Twitter, at Labor Diversity, Instagram, Jason.Greer. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm long title, just basic Jason Greer. Put in diversity, you're going to find me.
Awesome. Well, hey, Jason, I want to thank you again, man. And I'm going to throw this out at you, man. If you're ever in Pittsburgh, we're hitting a workout together, man, at LA Fitness or something. All right, man. The invite's there, man. I'll take you to my gym and we'll work out, buddy.
Hey, let's do it, man. Let's do it. I'm pumped. I'll be there next week. Let's do it.
Oh, let's do it.
I'll be your spotter because there's no way I can lift the weight that you guys can lift.
Hey, man. I don't know if I can hang out with Richard, so I'll be hanging out with you, John.
Oh, come on. But one of my final thoughts is for this is Jason has so much good information. I think the biggest thing is, and I say this all the time, and Jason agrees, get up in the morning, look in the mirror before you brush your teeth and say, you know what? I love myself so I can love other people around you. Simple as that. Love people around you. Open doors for people. Just be a good person that day and good things will come to you.
Amen.
That's all I have to say. Hey, Jason, once again, man, it's been a pleasure, buddy. Bless.
Hey,
you'll be on another show soon, man.
Hey, I look forward to it, brother.
You got it. Hey, we'll see you again. Same time,
Take
same
care.
place next week. Take care.
See ya.